But yeah, we're going to be talking about remote work and how to make it work for you. I don't need to introduce why we're having this discussion. Everybody knows, but you know, a little more than a year ago today was really kind of rare and unheard of. So just a little bit of, here's the overview what we're going to discuss. So just stepping into my background and how I first became a fan of remote work. So I worked in a few typical 9-to-5 offices when I started out, and I hated it. I just hated the idea of like having to sit in a chair for a set amount of hours just because somebody told me to. Like if I was being productive, happy to, but I even remember once watching a movie with my supervisor because we had no work. And I was like, this is ridiculous. There's so many things I can be doing. And I just was always, I never understood that, that way of working and why it was so popular. So when I started my own agency, I knew from the beginning, especially once I became a mom, that was like, it was almost impossible to be where they wanted me to be. So when I started my own agency right away, I knew that I was building something more flexible. And I told everyone I interviewed and hired, this job is about the responsibility and you getting what you need to do done. And you know, the rest, I trust you. And I'm not going to ask you, we did have regular working hours and we did have an office, but it was a very flexible setup even from the beginning. And then about 2 years in, one of my employees moved to New Jersey and she was a really valuable employee and I knew I wasn't going to let her go. So from that point on, we were already temporarily remote and it was a pretty easy transition. We had all of our documents stored in the cloud and we had all, you know, we had Gmail and it was pretty easy to work with her. So when Corona started, it was a super easy transition. I said, okay, guys, we're closing the office temporarily. If you can all just, you know, go home, we'll figure it out. And that's what happened. And, you know, they kept kind of checking in what's going on. And I said, we're still going to do this. We're still going to do this. And I noticed that everyone was just really happy. No one seemed to miss the office. Our work wasn't even suffering. And then my neighbor in our office next door was kind of like, we need the space. What are you doing? And that was the final push I needed. I gave up our main office space and we went fully remote and I haven't looked back. My team is really happy. It's not unusual anymore for clients. Originally, it was hard for them to wrap their heads around, but it's become more normal since Corona and a lot of offices are staying that way, at least partially. So, you know, once that happened, we really embraced it. Now, I just want to take a moment and just clarify that work from home, remote work is a very flexible term. That could mean working from a park bench, a rented office, a garage, a basement, your living room, wherever works for you. And if it's a combination that works for you, it's a very, very flexible term. So for me, if you see behind me, this is I rent this office just for me, myself, and I have a space. If I ever do have employees that want to come in, or if I have client meetings, I do have the space behind me. But I personally do not like working full-time from home for a few reasons. So this is my setup, but there's so many variations of that remote work. So just to dive in a little bit of the benefits of remote work, from an employee perspective, from a managerial perspective, the easy one, lower overhead. Rent is super expensive. And then you have all the things that go along with it, utilities, and nowadays you have to have snacks and water delivery. And there's a lot of expenses that come with having a physical place for employees to gather. Improved productivity, because you know what? We all know we have times of day that we work better. Some people work best early in the morning. Some people work best late at night. Not everybody works well from 9 to 5. So when you have a remote work opportunity, people can work when it's best for them. Flexibility to hire from anywhere. I think the days of people moving for a job are slowly coming to an end. For me, it's been great because now I have employees kind of all over the US and I'm not limited to where I am in Long Island, which it was always difficult for me to find people here. It really promotes independence. I found when we did work all physically in one location, it was so easy to just like turn to your neighbor, or I would get a knock on my office door and it would be really something that the person could have probably thought through easily on their own without interrupting somebody else. So it really does promote people to be self-starters and independent. And the bottom line is people are happier. You can juggle your priorities as you see fit. You can have a better quality of life, no commute, which for a lot of people, really just a time killer. Opportunities to travel. I have one employee who really likes to travel, and almost once a month she's working from some beach. And I'm happy for her as long as she has good Wi-Fi. She's happy, I'm happy. So those are some of the benefits. I want to touch really lightly on the potential drawbacks. I don't want to focus on the negatives, but there are some things that can come up. Some people feel very lonely and isolated. Not everybody likes, being on their own, and they miss the back and forth. It's harder to work as a team and to just have that natural camaraderie of, being around the water cooler and chatting about what's going on in your day. And, when you are working with someone closely side by side, you do end up becoming very close with them. So, it's easy to miss that. Difficulty communicating, it's a bit harder. You don't know, like when you're sitting in a cubicle and you see someone's not on the phone, you can set up a quick, impromptu meeting. When you're all working from different locations, it can be a little bit harder. And it's difficult to monitor employees if you're a manager and if you're an employer. It's kind of harder to know, where they are, if they're working, when they're working. You don't have as much of a handle on that. So how do you make it work? So I just broke this up because I know there's a mix of people on here, but if you're an employer or a manager, and if you're not, these are suggestions you can bring to your employer or your manager. The most important thing is everything has to be crystal clear. When you're working remotely, there is no room for ambiguity. Everyone has to know the company or the organization's vision. What are we all working towards? Like, why are we even doing this? No matter what level of employee you are, you should be able to clearly express the company vision and very set processes. This is how we do things as a team, and no ambiguity, because when you're not working together, there is no room for that. Clear expectations for each person. No one should have to sit down at their desk whenever they choose to work and not be sure of what is expected of them. And empowerment. People need to be empowered to maximize what you expect of them. And empowered means not just here's a job, get it done. Empowered means here's a job, how are you going to make it work? How are you going to make the best of your situation? And it's just more motivating that way than it's just like, here's your to-do list, execute it. Virtual meetings. Very important. We have, in our agency, I have one meeting a week that I'm on with everybody, and my team has a daily meeting. So this is just review what we're working on, chit chat for a few minutes, laugh, bring back that feeling. And even if you don't have anything important to discuss, that should be on the schedule so you make sure it happens and you can keep that feeling of being a team. And the last thing I want to say in this section is show appreciation. I was actually listening to a podcast. There's something called, if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, the author of that co-wrote a book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation at Work. And it's just about how it's very interesting how each person has their own way they want to be appreciated. And I think when you're working remote and it's not as easy to be like, high five, that was awesome, to just go that extra mile to appreciate the people you're working for, who work for you, who you're working with, whether it's verbally, a gift, the gift of your time. I think that goes a long, long way. Being cognizant of appreciation goes a long way when you're not working physically in the same location. If you're an employee and you don't necessarily have so much control over the things I just listed, here's the things you do have control over. Your workspace. It should bring you joy. You don't have to sit in a cubicle anymore, so there's no excuse. Does sitting on a park bench bring you joy? Go to the park. For me, I like pretty things, so I bought myself a plant. You can't see, there's a globe behind me, some pretty things. And I try to keep my workspace very neat. That brings me joy. Whatever scenario you're in, you set it up that it works for you. No one is telling you what to do at this point. So you have so much flexibility to really do that. And every time you sit down, it should be photos of your family. Every time you sit down, you should have that feeling of, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be doing this. Take breaks. When you're working from home and you're isolated, it's very important to get up, interact. If there's someone in your house or around that you can interact with, make a phone call. If there isn't, take a walk, get some fresh air. But take breaks that are necessary, because if you're working from home, there's a lot of distractions. So if you, let's say, you didn't think to bring water with you, and you go upstairs and then somebody's there and all of a sudden they need you, that's an unwanted break. So be efficient, have everything you need with you so you can take the breaks you want, but not the breaks that you don't want. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Tell a coworker or a manager, I'm having trouble with this remote work scenario. This is what I think I need. From family and friends, if there's certain struggles that are coming up because you work from home or work remotely, don't be afraid to ask for help. And I'm telling myself this as well. I'm super independent. I hate asking for help, but people are usually really, really happy to help. So take advantage. And bottom line is make it work for you. Like I said, the whole concept of remote work is flexible, and do what you need to do it in a way that works for you. It shouldn't make you miserable. And there's so many ways to do that. We can, talk about different ideas, but that's really important is your mindset. So to that end, I just wanted to point out, don't think of this as temporary. When these lockdowns started, it was like, okay, 1 week at home, 2 weeks at home, maybe another month at home. But for me and a lot of you, probably this is a long-term thing. Don't think of this as temporary. Don't say, I'm just going to wing it, even though XYZ is not working out for me, because this is now potentially your new life. So do whatever you need to do to make it work, whether it's investing in a good chair. I spent a little money on this chair and it's been a lifesaver. I don't have back pain. I don't have carpal tunnel. That's really important. Whether it's spending a little time, finding the things that will give you joy, or potentially renting an offsite office. Whatever it is, make this work for you no matter how long you think the setup is going to continue. Now, I didn't want to go too much into productivity and tools because I think that's something that everybody can really find very easily online. But just quickly, if anybody is interested, these are the tools that we use primarily to make remote work for us. Dropbox, all our files are in the cloud in Dropbox. I can access from my phone, from any device. I don't have to worry about, somebody's storage going on the fritz, or if somebody took a sick day unexpectedly. I have access to everything on the spot. That's a lifesaver. Google Docs, and also the rest of Google Suite, the Sheets, the PowerPoints, all of that is amazing for teamwork because it's really, really easy to use and it updates live and we can all collaborate with ourselves and with clients, and that's really, really easy. We use Slack for chat, which is great, but also a little bit of a trap. You have to make sure not to fall in the Slack trap of just slacking each other all day long. And I do encourage my team, get on the phone, get on a Zoom, have some face-to-face time. Don't spend your whole day chatting, but it is really helpful for quick, it's better for me than WhatsApp or personal messaging because they do have some functionality, if you're not familiar with Slack, that really works for the workplace. And we use Paymo for project management. It's specific for marketing agencies. So obviously, you need to find the project management tools that work for you, whether it's Trello or Asana. There's so many of them out there, but that's a must for a remote team because just having a one-stop shop where everybody can see what everybody's working on and to collaborate, that's been really important.